Hey, what's up guys? Kool-Aid here. Today we're going to be talking all about Bushwhacker, another engineer merc, and one of the only mercs who can still rack up kills and annoy the hell out of his enemies, all while waiting for a respawn. Bushwhacker has 110 health and a speed rating of 410, putting him near the middle of the pack in both categories. His primary and only ability is the turret. It does moderate damage, however it has a high rate of fire and it was 100% accurate. It always aims for the body unless only the head of the player is exposed. The turret does take a second to acquire and lock onto its targets, and will lock on the players in a 180 degrees cone in front of the turret. If it does lock onto a player, then the player tries to get behind the turret while still locked, it will actually follow them in a complete 360 degree circle. The turret does have 100 health and a 35-second cooldown. It can be reclaimed to lower that cooldown. If your current cooldown is 28 seconds or below, you will be able to place another turret instantly. However, if you reclaim your turret with 29 to 35 seconds left on your cooldown, you will not be able to lay another for 1 to 7 seconds depending on where in that range you fall. 29 seconds will be 1 second, 30 will be 2, etc, etc. And lastly, keep in mind that the turret does take a few seconds to deploy, so in most circumstances it's nice to have it placed before you actually engage your target, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later in the video. For weapons, Bushwhacker has 3 SMGs to choose from. The first one we'll talk about is the KEK-10. It's going to do 11 damage per body shot at a rate of fire of 700 rounds per minute, giving it a body DPS of 128. Second only to the Krotsny out of all the SMGs, Krotsny not being available to Bushwhacker, of course. And lastly, it's going to have a magazine size of 45 rounds with a 1.8 second reload. The next gun he has is the SMG-9. It's going to do 12 damage per body shot at a rate of 620 rounds per minute, giving it a DPS of 124, and it's going to hold 40 rounds per mag with a reload speed of 1.9 seconds. And we will talk a little bit more about the weapons as a whole once I finish the basic stats for all 3. So the last gun he has available to him is the Bushwhacker. I was kind of hard on this gun in the Fletcher video I did way back when, mainly because I hadn't used it enough and I wasn't quite as accurate. I've since done some sensitivity tweaking and things like that, and I've just gotten a little better at the game, so I've actually found the Bushwhacker a little more useful. And the Bushwhacker is going to do 18 damage per body shot, the most of any SMG, at a rate of fire of 400 rounds per minute, giving it a DPS of 120, which is the lowest of the 3 available to Bushwhacker. Now, because of the large amount of damage per shot, it's only going to hold 30 rounds per mag with a reload speed of 1.9 seconds. So the other important aspect I didn't talk about yet is recoil and spread. Unfortunately, we don't have any actual stats yet. However, I did do some very light testing. All 3 guns actually seem to have vertical recoil, of course, and side-to-side recoil. Side-to-side being the worst because you can't compensate for it. The vertical recoil on the Bushwhacker is going to be way more extreme than on the KEK-10 or the SMG-9. The side-to-side recoil is going to be similar. The Bushwhacker is going to be, or at least feel, more pronounced because of the slower rate of fire. As for spread, again, the Bushwhacker seems the worst because of the slower rate of fire, and the KEK-10 and SMG-9 actually feel very similar. If you remember, the SMG-9 actually did get a recoil and spread buff not too long ago, so it's a little better than it used to be. Overall, I would recommend the KEK-10. If you're good at headshots, or at least aim for headshots, the KEK-10 is going to be your best bet. Now, if you feel like you have trouble consistently landing headshots, the SMG-9 might actually play a little bit better for you. I would say try to practice to go for headshots, because if you're just never landing headshots, you're probably not going to be too successful at Dirty Bomb. But there are people that just don't care, and that's fine. So if that's you, the SMG-9 might actually be a little better, like I said. So the Bushwhacker is a whole other monster altogether, and even though I am really enjoying it right now, it's just not going to be for everyone, and the KEK-10 is just going to be a little more consistent. For augments, we're going to try to look for lock-on for that 30% faster turret lock-on speed, and then from there it's just the usual suspects, drilled, quick draw, double time maybe. And actually one augment that I've underestimated is spares, which allows you to carry 1 extra mag. Of course at times this is going to be wasted, but it's really nice for extending those long kill streaks when there is no ammo merc around, or you just don't feel like running to an ammo cache. One augment that looks okay, but I haven't really found too useful is Steady, which gives you a 21% health increase to deployables. I just don't think the difference between 100 health and 121 health on your turret is really worth trying to attain on a card. So with that being said, my favorite loadout card is the C41 Vanguard Operative. It's going to give you the Keck 10 with the M9 secondary. It's got our main augment we want in lock on, and it's also going to have spares and focus. Focus not really being important, but like most good cards, 2 out of 3 isn't too bad. So for a few tips on playing Bushwhacker, remember that turrets are fragile and do take a few seconds to activate after deployment. So deploying them in the middle of a fight will a lot of times do more harm than good. You know, there's going to be a couple seconds or a second there where you're not firing your weapon anymore, and you know, that turret deployment time, a lot of the times it's going to actually get killed before it activates anyway. So there are some exceptions to this, of course. You know, the main one being if you can duck behind the corner to give yourself a second or 2 where you're not going to be getting shot in that process. Your best bet though is to have your turret already set up before you are engaged. This way you won't have to stop firing to mess with it, and you can place it exactly how you want. You're not going to have to do it on the fly. Now, speaking of placing your turret, I'm not going to go over my favorite spots or the best spots, because usually each spot is only going to be used for a short period of time before another spot becomes better. I find that unless I'm really intent on defending one specific spot, I'm constantly repositioning my turret depending on the situation. And this also keeps the enemy from knowing where your turret is. Most players know how to deal with turrets now, so the element of surprise is key. Now, to expand on that, I found that placing turrets in a position where the enemy's back will be facing the turret upon initial lock works much better than just putting it in a spot where the enemy will be facing it head on. Basically, an obvious turret is usually a dead turret. Just think of it as another player that cannot move and gives the enemy a second head start. I've read a lot of comments from people saying that they can just not get kills with their turret, and it really just comes down to them not placing them in good spots. Now, lastly, don't forget that you can reclaim your turret. So if you are fighting around your turret and it starts taking a couple of shots, if you have the chance, pick it up and lay it back down. You'll have a brand new turret with full health. I could go into great detail about how to lay your turrets better, but a lot of it's just kind of trial and error, and you'll figure it out on your own if you play Bushwhacker enough, if you give him enough of a chance. But anyways, guys, that's all I've got. If you have any other tips or advice for playing Bushwhacker, leave them in the comment section. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to y'all later.